Hi, and happy Mother's Day. I'm Gretchen Burns Bergman, co founder and executive director of A New Path, Parents for Addiction Treatment and Healing, and lead organizer of our Moms United to End the War on Drugs national campaign. Today's interview is part of hashtag Moms 2020 Vision. It's an international campaign, and we're calling for therapeutic and compassionate drug policies and an end to the global war on drugs. This is a wonderful Mother's Day for me because I'm joined by my two sons as soon as we can technically figure out how to get my other son on with us. And what we really want for Mother's Day is a public health approach to drug use and substance use disorders, not a criminal justice approach. So today I'm going to be interviewing my sons. They're both in long-term recovery. There, you see Aaron on the screen right now, and Elon should be on soon. And so, uh, I obviously, because it's Mother's Day, I might have had a little more leverage of getting my two sons on with me today. But they do; they both work with me to reduce the stigma and to change our drug laws and policies. So I was going to start with Elon because he was sort of the original poster child. Elon, do you want to come in and do this from here or? Okay, I'll start. This is new to all of us. I will start with my younger son, Aaron. Aaron is a drug and alcohol counselor. He is the manager of a sober living that Elon owns, and his recovery has been miraculous. He found his recovery at 40 after numerous attempts at treatment, after criminal justice involvement, and after quite a few health scares, if you will. But his recovery has been so incredible to watch, to see the power of healing and the mind, body, spirit is just amazing. I'm so proud of you, Aaron. Would you mind sharing a bit of your story, how what your journey was, what our family's journey was for decades through and then your recovery and what that feels like?
Um, yeah, that's a bold, broad question.
Very broad.
There's a lot of years in there. I mean, if I go to the AA model of this is, what was it like and what happened and what is like now. Is that what we're looking for?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna get too much into my childhood, but like the thing is like I got into drugs pretty early. I like to do a I don't know. I was always kind of one of those kids that had to try everything and do everything, and I felt like really, I don't know. I felt better when I was on substances at the time, and at first it always just seemed like partying and having fun, and until I got mixed up and working. I got hooked on heroin. I was 20 years old, and from that moment on, it was no longer fun and games. It became a lifestyle. It became my whole life. 20 years of using heroin, you go through a lot, and I first time I tried to get sober, I was like 25. I got caught, and I got put into treatment, and I was not willing to do the work that it took. I went to the meetings, and I still didn't believe that I really needed it yet at that time. I still thought, for some reason, 5 years into it, I still thought I could actually just stop when I wanted to. But I felt like the heroin was still working for me at that point. Um, I'm really good at wearing dual masks. I'm good at being a chameleon. I can even in my heavy addiction, I can pull off having jobs and making myself look pretty good on the outside, and I cleaned up quick. If I went into a treatment center, I get 30 days sober, I could clean up quick. And then it was just always just off to the races. It always reconfirmed. It made me feel like I didn't need this because I could always bounce back so quickly. Towards the end, it got really, really bad. I tried to put together a marriage in there at some point. I tried to make outside sources fix my inside problem. I thought if I had a good job and a wife and close to the beach, I would be happy, and all three of those things I had, and I felt completely alone still. Heroin was the only thing that mattered in my life. My family didn't matter, as much as I hate saying that. I couldn't stop using for anything. I tried to get sober really once at 30. I try to save the marriage, try to save my ass, and I got a little bit of it. I got a little recovery at that point. Like I heard a little bit more of the message. It didn't stick because I didn't. I still put my marriage and my job in front of it. And of course that didn't work out for me. So what they told me would happen. I would do the country song. I would lose the job, the wife, and everything. And sure enough, I did. All the way down to the dog. And at that point, I had no belief in myself whatsoever, and it was just fuel for me to completely go downhill fast. I just went so deep into the addiction. I didn't have any belief that I could do anything, that everything would fail in my life. At this point now, I'm in and out of treatment facilities. I'm always walking around with abscesses on me, in and out of the hospital. Just misery. I'm selling drugs. I'm paranoid. My whole life is just around people that only care about me giving them drugs, and the only reason I'm doing that is because I have such a bad habit that the only way I could pay for it is to really sell drugs and be in that lifestyle. My habit was really, really bad. From benzodiazepines to heroin to methamphetamine to methadone. That was like a daily cocktail for me to get through the day. And at the end of the day, after all that, I was so miserable. I literally I'd have a gun in my mouth, and I just couldn't pull the trigger, and I was bummed at myself that I couldn't, and the reason I was bummed is because I knew I was gonna have to wake up and go through that misery all again just to get through the day, that I was going to have to go to the methadone clinic, get the heroin, take these benzos, take my meth, and just to get through. So, about 40, I got arrested again for sales. And the judge gave me two options, which was, well, he didn't give me two options. The PO gave me two options. The judge said, they're going to give me treatment. The PO said, look, we can give you 6 months treatment. And I said, no. I said, treatment doesn't work for me. Send me to jail. And he said, yeah, okay. He had a sense of humor. So he said, I'll give you a year in jail. And then when you get out, you got to do 6 months of treatment. I was like, all right, man, just give me the treatment then, and I'll see what can happen. I went through the treatment, and I was still doing what I do. I was still selling drugs, still using drugs, still trying to beat the test. I didn't have any belief in myself. I didn't have any will to live. So, at the end of it, I got kicked out one last time. Thought I was going to go on a run, just wait until the cops got me. And you picked me up from treatment. And yeah, they broke HIPAA on that because I didn't sign any releases for you to know anything. And so they called her and my mom picks me up as I'm on my way out, right? And bags packed, ready to charge. You know, the PO's coming to get me, and she takes me to her house and begs me to look at other options. We had a huge blowout fight, and then I just because all I wanted to do was go get high. I didn't want to hear anything. I wanted to get high so bad. It was just killing me that I had to even listen for any kind of seconds to her about what a because the shame and guilt was so heavy. I knew I was wrong. I knew it was all messed up. But the thing is, I didn't have any choices at this moment. And so we got in the house, and she told me to look at a few places, and I did. And there's a moment in there where I'm looking around the house and I'm looking at pictures, and I'm realizing that there's people in those pictures that have gone, like my uncles and people have passed away. And it was just like it was, and then I didn't see any pictures of me. And every picture I did see of me was old pictures, and I was high in every one of them. And I had a little moment where I was like, okay, well, if I'm not going to do it now, when am I going to do it? And so I gave it another shot, and I didn't go in like really happy about going to treatment. Like I got high that night, and then I went into treatment, and I kicked and screamed because I didn't believe in anything. I didn't believe in the 12 steps would work for me. And until I was in treatment, they said me, we're going to kick you out if you don't do the steps. If you don't finish step 4, you're going to go to jail. And so I finished my step 4, and then somewhere in there, my brain started to heal. Am I going too long?
No, you're beautiful. We're still trying to get
Okay, I'll keep
Elon
going
in,
then.
but while you're talking, I want to just say that yes, I was tenacious. I learned really early on that it wasn't about me, that you weren't doing anything to hurt me or harm me, that you felt that you needed drugs, and the same thing with Elon, like you need the air to breathe. It was that you couldn't imagine a day without the drugs. And I, coming in there all the time saying, "I'll get you to treatment," became this obstacle that right. And I don't know that if you ever hated me, but I thought, okay, I don't care if he hates me. I want him to live, and so that's why I kept. And I tell your parents, never, ever, ever, ever give up hope. You just keep trying, right?
You have to keep fighting. I remember you told me keep him alive till 35, and then we went past that marker, and then we're at 40, and yeah, and wasn't I mean I wasn't always happy to see you because you were always going to come try to put me in treatment, or the look you give me is like it didn't make me feel good inside because I knew you were. That one time I got kicked out of treatment, and you're trying to come get me before the cops come get me, and I'm sitting outside, sweating with a gun in my hand, and you're standing away from me, looking at me, and I'm looking like, oh, what's wrong, and you were scared. You were scared to come near me, and I was like, stop being so dramatic, and I'm sitting there looking like a crazy person with a gun, and but that was my normal. That was it. It didn't matter. Like it was my normal. I didn't see it as being crazy because my head was gone.
Talk about today, though, because the change is so dramatic. I mean, I'm always just amazed when I see you out surfing and having a nice relationship, going back to school, working really 2 jobs. The transformation has been incredible. And I'm going to, as soon as you do that, I'm going to invite Elon to come sit next to me because technology is failing
us. Failing us right now. Okay, well, yeah, I don't like to live in the past about all that stuff. I don't want to close the door on it either. But the same thing is like what this program has afforded me is a life. My relationships I have with my family, of course, I'm here and we're doing this. Means more to me than anything else. Being a part of the lives of my cousin and her daughters, and being there, because I know I put you guys through hell for so long. But all the things that I was before I got into this is what I had to tap back into, because I flushed everything down for the drugs. Everything fit in that spoon. And ambition, hobbies, all that stuff. So I had to find things that I loved again. And I was insecure about going back to surfing, and I was insecure about doing these things that I've been so long. But yeah, for mind, body, and spirits, what you got to do. I worked the program daily. I went really hard on the program. 3 meetings a day, whatever it took. I worked with sponsors. I surrounded myself in the program. I didn't give everybody I saw that was making it did that, and so I took a page out of their book. I work on myself daily, and so yeah, one thing led to another. I started surfing again. I started having good friendships, and I started, cultivating these friendships and people that I could trust, that I know will be there for me in these situations when I'm having troubles. And finding myself again, I gave up on me a long time ago. I remember telling you, like, Mom, you and our relationship would just be so much better if you could accept me as a heroin addict. I mean, that was where I was at. Because I didn't see that I could live, because I thought literally that I was doing you a favor by staying on heroin, because heroin was keeping me from killing myself, because that's how much I hated life. And so I had to find a love for life. Now I work with the others. I went back to school, started working in treatment. And that's what this program's about. You get out of the selfishness of me. If I try to go upstairs for an answer for my problems, I'm usually going into some murky waters. The idea is I can't fix my problems, but I know that through the program and working these spiritual principles that I can help others, and that seems to help me with my problems. And so that's what I do. And it's just one thing after another. Then it's school, and then I'm working, my job that I got now, and then you just keep doing the next indicated step, like they say, good orderly direction. My life's amazing compared to where
you're an inspiration, Aaron. And we're going to give up on the technology, and I'm just bringing Elon right into the room here. So Elon was really the first poster child. I'll show you the picture here.
I've never seen those pictures.
A new path. So Elon was arrested at 20 for marijuana possession, which started 11 years of cycling in and out of prison. The time that I started A New Path in 1999, we were advocating for therapeutic rather than punitive drug policy, specifically treatment instead of incarceration for nonviolent drug offenders. So when I was asked to be state chair in California of Prop 36, I was confronted right away with is this my story to tell? Is it his story to tell? It's really our family story to tell. And I knew that I really couldn't take that kind of position without having permission to tell our story from Elon. So although he was in prison, I was so touched by his answer, which was, yes, if my story can help anybody else, I want to do that. And neither of us really believed at the time that by advocating, we were going to help his situation, but we knew that we were going to help other people along the way. And it really did start a sea change. Yes, Aaron later became a Prop 36 person as well. So he got treatment or non-treatment by Prop 36. That's another story. I've always been incredibly proud of Elon and now Aaron that they're willing to speak out, because far too many people keep this as a closeted issue, and that just promotes stigma. So I wanted to ask Elon to just share his story, as you did yours, and I'm going to move aside so Elon can come into the camera a little bit better.
I'm here.
Okay.
I think if I try to push forward, can you hear me?
I think that's lovely.
Actually, the angle is better over here anyway. So really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day. Did you want to ask me a specific question, or do you want to just ramble on like Aaron for a minute?
I just wanted you to talk about your early days and kind of the detour. I remember you thinking that you could either go this way or that way, and you ended up going down the road less traveled, if you will, and just a little bit about the journey and where it took you.
Okay, there's a lot of talk about whether marijuana, alcohol leads to different things. And now it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be a gateway drug. It doesn't work that way for everyone. But for me, it did work that way. It started opening up the desire to be out of myself and to get loaded. Now, the hugest things that get in the way of recovery are pretty much, well, the biggest thing is denial. But it's kind of empowered by this terminal uniqueness, then they say, which means I'm different from everyone. Even if I see the evidence that things are bad, it's different for me. I'll change it. I'll be able to do it different. All those kind of things. And also complete fear of what if they're right? What if I have a problem? Because then I'd have to like make this dramatic change that just terrifies me. So those two things pretty much make denial the biggest monster everywhere. And we become PhDs at like cognitive gymnastics to display the truth the way our disease needs it to be, to where we can continue to live the life we're doing, or whatever, not even a life, but what we're trying to do at that point. I didn't find, like I had problems here and there, but I always just thought I was growing up with it, and I did every drug when I was a teenager. And there was problems, but because of denial and because a lot of people were using them, and, I thought I'd learned my lesson. I just keep it to the weed. I just drink, I'd smoke weed. As long as I did this, it'd be okay. And it was just like and part of that's denial. It really got bad when I found opiates. Now, I didn't find opiates as fast as Aaron, because it hadn't become so prevalent in all communities at that point during it. I was about, maybe 23, probably 24. Well, actually 23 when I started finding opiates. I got hooked on Vicodin, and I didn't realize they were that dangerous. I just started eating them, and I automatically loved that high of the opiate right there. That kind of was like the stepping stone that got me to heroin. I really believe if I didn't find the pharmaceutical, whether it's Oxycontin, Percocet, Vicodin, that I wouldn't have took the step up to heroin at that point. It just made that step a lot easier, because before that, I would have never, even though I'd used every drug, I would have never thought I'd use heroin. I would have never thought that was possible. I hated needles. I wouldn't have thought that there'd ever come a day that. But when you get that physical dependence of opiates, even something like Vicodin, it just makes that step a little easier. And then when you find out you can smoke it first, and you don't have to use the needle, it gets the step going that direction a little further. And that's, I ran into criminal justice before I even ran into heroin, but that exacerbated the problem hugely, because I just was powerless at that point. My life really, where before, I think I heard Aaron talking about being able to hold down jobs, social life, and all that kind of stuff. I didn't have many jobs, but I do the school thing, and I had lots of friends, and I'm, socially active, and I could hold down a job if I wanted, but I was kind of selling marijuana, so I didn't need to. So life was kind of like, it was going where I could convince myself that it was going in a direction that was adaptive at that time. Opiates, heroin changed that completely. I don't want to go. I just kind of direct me. I don't want to aimlessly go. So you wanted me to cover.
Well, I just want to share that I something that a conversation we were having about, finding recovery and having the prison experience. To believe that to think of yourself as an ex-con, as a criminal. I mean, my son was criminalized at the age of 20 for possession of marijuana, which I always found incredibly insulting, because I know what a good heart he has. But to get past an addiction, the maze of addiction, is really incredible. I mean, it really requires true grit, integrity, honesty with yourself. You have to change everything about yourself. But to add on top of that you are seen by society as an ex-convict. Elon at one point had to tell himself that he was worthy, that he actually deserved to have a good life, and to go, and he put himself back in school. He got a degree at San Diego State, but that whole labeling of an ex-convict, and let's talk about labels. calling somebody an addict, calling somebody a codependent, enabler, and people are not labels. We would prefer to say there's somebody who's struggling with a substance use disorder, right? I can
speak on that.
Yeah.
She brings up such a good point, because stigma is really still our problem. People are still dying of opioid overdose. People are not getting Narcan. People are still going to prison for petty drug offenses, all because of stigma. Because in one point we say, oh yeah, it's a disease. But even those in the choir that are watching this, that are trying to do it, we always have to look inside ourselves and see if with words or even leftover thoughts that we're stigmatizing someone in some way. Because even different types of recovery, if you're not in the right type of recovery, AA has always been harsh on NA people, and the 12-step people are harsh on Matt, and it's we're all stigmatizing each other, even though we're fighting against it, and the only way to really fight against it is to challenge ourselves. I have to challenge myself, even though I've been the victim the whole time. When I first started letting her speak out for me, I didn't think there was any possible way I'd ever get off drugs. And because I've been pushed in the system so much, I didn't think there was ever a day that I wouldn't be going back to prison. And so when I told her she could speak out, it was from a place deep down that was a good heart that just wanted to do some good, even though there was no good tangible for me. And it was very scary, first of all, to say that, but also because I knew I was going back to prison. And it's really a cardinal sin to talk about what goes on with prison. It's almost like, it's not being a rat, but it's you're not supposed to be speaking on these things. So not just the way I was seen, stigmatized, but it really put my safety at jeopardy if I continued living the way I was doing. But it's an important cause, because really, you took someone that was using marijuana, selling marijuana, I got, which is legal now, and you put them in with people that are murderers, and it's not even just that, it's just the whole label of having a number, and the recidivism rate, and the lack of jobs, and have you ever been convicted of a felony, and you feel like you have loser, not valid written on your forehead, and to someone who's trying to get in recovery, it hinders, and it can also display a poor me status, like I was talking about denial before, and the disease wants to keep going no matter what happens. If I can go, well, they're just going to treat me like a convict anyway, or the world's not treating me fair, it's another way my disease can block out from seeing the truth and doing the necessary work that it needs to do.
Yeah. Thank you. I know we've all, when I started A New Path, and I started with two other parents, A New Path, stigma was the main issue. Having the nerve to speak out, to really break through the shackles of shame, right? But as I've gone along, it's still the major issue, even though we've gotten into all forms of harm reduction, of criminal justice reform, sentencing reform, all of those things. Stigma remains that issue at the core of all of this, and it runs deep. It runs within the healthcare, it runs within recovery, it runs certainly in the criminal justice system and in society in general, in our education system. So, Aaron, I wondered if you wanted to, because that was one of my questions for both of you, and you spoke beautifully about the stigma. If you want to talk a little bit about stigma as well.
Your turn.
Well, I 100% agree with we all know stigma exists. It's a fact, and because hate to say it, but because the opioid addiction, it's starting to come more out there, because it's now affecting suburban areas, and this is just the truth. It's okay when it's in the inner cities, and we can criminalize them, back with the crack epidemic, but now the opiates, and it starts coming home, right? And but stigma is going to be there, and the biggest part of stigma I worry about, and it's one that I got caught up in, is myself, is when we start stigmatizing harm reduction. We start stigmatizing medicated assisted treatment. We start stigmatizing SMART to AA to anything. I feel that, like, we are such a stigmatized group ourselves to really start to do it to ourselves is madness. I fell into it, because I was not able to find, but I never worked the program, so I don't know. I tell people I have one sobriety date, even though I try to get sober 1,000 times. I just never tried to do the work to stay sober, so it worked when I put the work in, go figure. But the thing is like with Suboxone, I never was able to get sober. With methadone, I always used dope on top because I wasn't trying to get the solution. I wasn't trying to. So I personally said when I did it this time, I did it without anything. I got on that kick where it's like, you don't need any of that. I can do it, you can do it. And I got caught up in my own stigma against other people who were trying to do this. We got empirical evidence that shows medicated assisted treatment works, right? Why aren't we using it? Why are we stigmatizing against them? It doesn't make any sense to me. We have to really fight against that, especially in recovery, because I work with clients who get sponsors and then the sponsors drop them because they find out they're on Suboxone. Yeah. And then they feel horrible, like that they don't have recovery. And then they start, and we already have so much shame and guilt going into this thing. Like the last thing we need to do is start creating stigma against them, whatever their path looks like. I say take a tool from any toolbox you can grab as long as it gets you down that path, right? We don't have to be indoctrinated into one little way of doing it. For me, 12 steps AA, I know it works. I think everybody in the world should work the 12 steps. But that doesn't mean I don't think you can't go to a smart recovery meeting and pick up some information. That doesn't mean I don't think you can't do that. So
it's about getting to know. Brother. It's about really getting to know yourself. I've thought the same thing. That the process of delving into who you are, what your truth is, what your integrity really is a process that you go through in recovery that I've just marveled at in watching not just you but so many people. But I wanted to touch on one more subject. I know we're kind of going over because it took so long to get Elon on, but is that we are living in a dual crisis right now with COVID-19 presenting all kinds of problems in terms of the delivery of service and particularly the delivery of MAT services, and the opioid overdose, which is in the United States a person dies every 7 minutes of an opioid overdose, and so. That seems, and that was before COVID. So we know that the numbers are going up, the depression, the mental illness associated with all of this as well. So, I like to say that Elon is I don't like to say it, but I mean, I say that he is a survivor of both the criminal justice system and accidental overdose. And his overdose, the first one, I think there were others, but that is so poignant a memory for me. As a mother, when you know your kids are on drugs, you lie awake at night, or you wake every time you hear the phone ring. You're afraid that it's the morgue or the criminal justice or whatever, and you almost hope it's criminal justice because that's better than the alternative. But I did get one of those calls in the middle of the night from Elon's then girlfriend's mother, who had taken him, thank God, she was a good Samaritan, to the emergency room.
No, she called the ambulance.
Or she called, okay. And then called me. And, so I was sort of alone. I was told, why are you being a codependent and going by my husband at the time? He changed his mind about all this, by the way. But and then calling Aaron, who said, "Oh no, you're being overly dramatic," and then going to the hospital, not knowing if he's going to live or die in the waiting room, and then not knowing from what they were telling me that if he would have his brain when he came to. So that was my experience. But then, he went back to his home, and there's no way to protect him. There was no way to keep him safe after that. But that was my experience. Elon and I started speaking out about overdose. He just before this session was teaching 25 people an overdose prevention class, Narcan distribution. I'll show you what Narcan looks like.
So important.
And so from his perspective, and I think you could actually do that in the other room if you'd like to.
I just saw that Elon came up.
Yeah,
so should I try it?
You're right there. Yeah, let's try it. So,
Leo, I'm coming.
Here we come. We're gonna bring Elon in on his own screen. I think it's poignant to hear, because they say it's a family disease. Actually, we don't use the word disease anymore unless you separate it like it's a dis-ease, but we use the word substance use disorder, so that you're not additionally labeling. And I'm going to show Elon right now. And here he comes. So I think it's interesting to hear it from all sides of what his experience was as well. Yes. We can't hear you though.
The problem I would say with this thing with the COVID and the overdose is at the start of it, we knew that people are going to overdose. We have such a huge overdose rate already. And then do we close meetings because some people might get COVID, right?
I am not doing that ever again.
Okay. Yes, I hear you.
But I'll go back to Elon. So I want Elon. This is important.
Okay.
Okay, I got it. That's okay. Let's sit down. Okay, want to get in the screen here. So that's about the 10th time I've tried to make that computer work this morning. So that's
acceptance.
Talk about relapse prevention, and my triggers all over the place here. Yeah. Learn to live with life on life's terms. Okay, ODs are the one she talks about first is really interesting, because it was before I had found heroin. Now I was on Vicodin and that didn't really cause it, but it was the type of thing that I was on opiates and I was out drinking every night. I'd take some pills and I'd drink. This one night I found something new, or that I hadn't heard of. It was real early 90s at that point, called GHB, and because they said, oh, it's herbal ecstasy. It became known more like a date rape thing and that kind of stuff. But they said, afterwards, I found out you're not supposed to take it with alcohol and you're supposed to take a capful. At the time, I started chugging it like it was a beer or something. And I was in the club and I started to, by that point, I had taken 10 hits of acid at once and tried a million times and just every drug there is. So I was really comfortable with being extremely high and didn't freak out. But all of a sudden, I was like losing it. And I was in a club where everyone's drunk and it's loud. So I started to worry my mind. And I was talking to this young lady and I just said, no one's going to notice that on this. Just keep composure. You're not really going to have to do it. And then all of a sudden I see her saying, are you okay? Are you okay? And in my brain, I couldn't get out the words. My brain's saying, tell her you're okay. Just say, I'm fine. And it couldn't get out of my mouth. I don't remember anything after that. Come to find out, I had drank more of the stuff and all that. And, they tried to take me home and then an ambulance came and my dog freaked out, everything. I don't remember anything between are you all right and losing it and waking up in the emergency room with doctors all around me talking about got a heartbeat, that kind of stuff. And then a little later seeing mom over me in the hospital bed. The thing is, you watch these movies, and I was a strong young man at the time. I was bench pressing way over 300 pounds. And I just was ready to stop bullets, I thought. And you see these movies that say, well, he's strong, he's going to live. You want to believe that before it happens, there's this huge warning sign that says, hey, stupid, you're losing it. You need to get it together. You're going to die. Do something. Fight for your life. I did not know to even fight. I would have just slipped right off this planet without ever even knowing to fight. It was just blackness, And a lot of times with ODs that I found out later, especially when I found heroin, is that we're on death's door every time. And we think that the OD is going to feel so much different and give us that sign, and it's not. We've been there the whole time. Death's been right under it. We've just been walking it. So the time it finally goes, it's just one little bit under. You probably tell the people you're fine at the time. you know, and you're not fighting, you're slipping off the planet.
Yeah.
Did I cover it?
Yeah, you did. It's beautiful. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think this is another reason why we all need to have this in our medicine cabinet. Since 2009, A New Path has been doing overdose prevention trainings. April's on the call today. You can't see her, but she's the director of our Narcan training. And please reach out to us. 619-670-1184 to get the training. You can get the training on the county website, and then reach out to us, and we'll get you this Narcan. But it was my deep belief that mothers are oftentimes the first responder in the situation of an overdose.
God bless them.
And why would I not be allowed to have this in my medicine cabinet, right? I should have the right to save my child. It's such a safe drug that quickly reverses an accidental opioid overdose. So you can reach out to us on that. I think maybe it's time to wrap up a little bit.
Do me a favor, repeat the phone number again.
619-670-1184. Thanks, Aaron. So that with the Moms 2020 Vision campaign, we have 8 demands, and I won't go through them all because we've been putting them on Facebook every day. But basically, it's stop criminalizing our children who use drugs or who are struggling with substance use disorder, and reject the concept of tough love. Tough and love don't resonate together. We call it true love. And then that means a whole host of adopting all kinds of harm reduction strategies, but remembering to keep loving and keep hoping, and that it's in our maternal nature to want our children to survive and to do everything that you can possibly do to keep them alive, and to find the safest, most beneficial places for them to be when they're struggling, so that they have a place to come back to when they do recover. So their family has to be open. And so I'm going to wrap up, but I want to show you that part of our campaign is to plant forget-me-not flowers in honor of a loved one who's lost either their lives or their liberty to the global war on drugs. This is being done in Scotland with our partners in Scotland and Canada and Mexico, and I'm planning these today for my Mother's Day. Please watch our interview next Friday at 11 o'clock as I talk to our partners in Canada, the Moms Stop the Harm. They're part of this overall Moms United to End the War on Drugs coalition of partners, to hear what amazing things they're doing in terms of harm reduction in Canada. And if you came in part way, or you want to skip through and see this again, please start it from the beginning in about 10 minutes. I didn't mean to hide you, Aaron. I mean to show you. There you are. So happy Mother's Day, everybody. And thank you so much for listening, and reach out to us at A New Path or at the Moms United website, www.momsunited.net. Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Yes, hang in there.
Thanks, guys.